Welcome to my channel, and this is Enjoy with Kitten Story. This story speaks the wisdom of balance. There was once a just and wise king named King Salem. He ruled over a great kingdom known for its prosperity and fairness among other realms. Salem was a rare king in his wisdom and humility, always close to his people, asking about their conditions and listening to their problems. One day, while King Salem was wandering through the markets of his kingdom in disguise as an ordinary man, he heard the voice of a wise man sitting under a tree speaking to a group of people. The man was called Sage Saleh, and he was known for his wisdom and ability to see things from a different perspective. King Salem approached and sat among the people to listen to what Sage Saleh was saying. The sage asked, "Tell me, what truly matters to a person in this life? Is it wealth? Is it power? Or is it love?" The crowd began to ponder, but no one dared to answer. Saleh continued, "The answer is not that simple. All these things are important, but there is something greater than all of them." One man from the crowd stepped forward and said, "It is respect. A person lives and grows with dignity and must have respect to feel their worth." The sage nodded and replied, "Respect is great, but it is not the most important. Respect can fade with the loss of power or wealth." Then a young man stepped forward and said, "It is knowledge. A person is honored by their knowledge and wisdom." The sage smiled and said, "Knowledge opens doors, but it is not the most important. Knowledge alone can lead to arrogance, and arrogance is the path to destruction." Many answers followed from the crowd, but the sage gently rejected each one. Then Sage Saleh looked at King Salem, unaware of his true identity, and asked, "Do you have an answer?" The king looked at the man thoughtfully and said, "Perhaps the most important thing is justice. Without justice among people, everything will fall apart and society will collapse." The sage smiled and said, "You are very close. Justice is important, but there is something deeper than justice." Silence fell over the crowd, and then Sage Saleh said, "The most important thing in life is balance. Balance between strength and compassion, between knowledge and humility, between wealth and dignity, between love and justice is what keeps a person and society stable. Without balance, even the best things can become a curse." King Salem pondered the sage's words for a long time. He was right. Balance is what keeps everything in its proper place. He returned to his palace, determined to improve the balance in his kingdom in all aspects of life. In the following days, King Salem issued several orders focused on creating balance in society. He redistributed wealth more fairly and established new schools to teach not only science, but also the values of humility and compassion. He encouraged charity work and enacted new laws to ensure the rights of everyone, regardless of their social status. Over the years, King Salem's kingdom became a model for the world to follow. It was a kingdom balanced in all things, and its people lived in happiness and prosperity. King Salem's name continued to be remembered in history as one of the greatest kings who ruled with justice and wisdom. As for Sage Saleh, he continued to spread his wisdom, never knowing that his words on that day had changed the course of an entire kingdom. Over time, people began to repeat a famous piece of wisdom they learned from the wise man. Life is not about having everything, but about achieving balance in everything. And so, it was the wisdom of balance that made the king's life and his people's lives happier and more prosperous. The story of King Salem and his wisdom was passed down through generations as an example that balance in all aspects of life is the key to true success. Moral: life is not merely about pursuing material success, power, or even knowledge. It is about seeking balance in all aspects to achieve a sustainable and happy life. This story speaks the legacy of values. In an ancient kingdom, there lived a wise king named King Rashid. His kingdom was prosperous, where justice and prosperity prevailed among the people. However, there was one thing that always troubled King Rashid. How could he ensure that this prosperity and justice would continue even after his passing? One day, the king decided to walk incognito among his people to better understand what was happening in his kingdom. As he strolled through one of the markets, he came across an old man sitting under a large tree, surrounded by a group of people. The old man was known as Sage Nasser, and people would gather around him to hear his wisdom and inspiring stories. King Rashid sat among the crowd, unnoticed, and listened to Sage Nasser's conversation. One of the listeners asked, "Oh, Sage Nasser, what is the greatest thing a person can strive to achieve in life? Is it wealth, fame, or happiness?" The sage smiled and replied, "These things may be important, but there is something greater than all of them. It is something that stays with you even after you're gone, ensuring that people remember you with kindness." King Rashid was intrigued by the sage's words and asked, "And what is this great thing you're speaking of?" Sage Nasser looked at the king and said, "It is the legacy you leave behind. Not just a material legacy, but a legacy of values and good deeds. Wealth may disappear, fame may fade, but what you do for others and what you give to your community will last forever." King Rashid pondered the sage's words and asked, "How can a person ensure they leave behind a lasting legacy?" Sage Nasser replied, "You must plant goodness in the hearts of others. If you teach people justice and compassion, and if you help build a society based on cooperation and love, your legacy will endure. It's not about how much you own or what personal achievements you have, but the impact you leave on the lives of others." The king returned to his palace, deeply reflecting on this profound wisdom. He decided to focus his efforts on teaching his people the values of justice and compassion, and to invest in building a generation that would uphold these principles. He established schools that not only taught science and the arts, but also morals and noble values. He also initiated charitable projects to help the poor and the needy and encouraged his people to work together and support one another. He would often say, "A king is not just one who rules with justice, but one who teaches his people to be just with one another." Over the years, King Rashid became a symbol of wisdom and justice in his kingdom. His charitable works and teachings continued to have a lasting impact even after his passing. His people always remembered him with kindness and often repeated his wisdom. "The true legacy is what you plant in the hearts of people." And thus, King Rashid's vision came to fruition. His legacy was not just a prosperous kingdom, but a nation built on the values of justice, compassion, and love, a legacy that continued for generations to come. Morale. The greatest legacy a person can leave behind is not wealth or fame, but the values and good deeds that live on in the hearts of others, making the world a better place.